That handsome fellow. Let's see if I can. Oh, there he is. That handsome fellow is Ian Graham from the rock band The Well, and we're having coffee this morning, just a few minutes ago down the street. He stops by whenever he's in the area. They play tomorrow. They play tonight in San Francisco, Santa Cruz tomorrow, and it's a great band, great guy. There's one of their stickers that he presented me with yesterday. Here's another refrigerator magnet. The Well. Okay. Anyway, that is my morning so far. I got a busy day uh, ahead of me, not the least of which Constance is demanding that she give me a haircut and a beard trim in preparation for my talk tonight. Uh, Ian and I were discussing the difference between biblical history and history, specifically where it comes to the history of the Middle East and the biblical history of the Middle East, and where they seem to connect, but most importantly, where they don't seem to connect. And it's the subject of a couple of my books. I touch on it briefly in my novel, okay, An Accidental Christ, but I talk about it in depth in this book, The Key to Solomon's Key. Is this the lost symbol of Masonry? This second edition with a great introduction by my dear late friend, Jim Wasserman. And it is published by a good friend of mine at CCC, Consortium of Collective Consciousness. They have quite a few very good, sort of controversial titles. But if you don't have a key to Solomon's Key, I strongly advise it. Of course, I do, whether you read it or not. The second half of the book is really a handbook of Goetic magic. Okay, with all the seals, all the spirits, directions, just classic stuff. But the whole idea of why this kind of magic can effectively work, anything you do is magic, so everything you do is either working well or it's not working well. So I have to always amend what I say when I say if your magic is a success. Well, magic's a success if it accomplishes the object of the operation, and that's always sort of a subjective call. Be that as it may, for Saturday morning cartoons, Ian and I were talking about the idea of how the archetypes of magic are based on myths, legends, things like that, that just serve as metaphors for dynamics that are taking place within our own consciousness. And we could just as easily use other metaphors uh, for our practical purposes. That's why it's really silly to say that, ooh, Christian magic doesn't work, but Islamic magic does, or Jewish magic is the only Kabbalistic magic, and or Nordic magic. Choose your metaphor and go with it, okay? But the subject turned to King Solomon and the fact that there's a whole branch of magic that bears his name, solomonic magic, and what made solomonic magic effective. And what it comes right down to is Solomon makes solomonic magic effective. When you're a Solomon, you can do magic. When you're a Solomon, the spirits obey you. When you're a Solomon, you are in harmony with the universal purpose. When you're a Solomon, you are the hand of God. Now, the magic becomes, how do I become a Solomon? Whole reason I drag in Freemasonry and the Knights Templar and things like that is because of the fact that a Solomon can't effectively operate as long as he or she is in bondage to superstition. You're binding yourself to a dualistic, superstitious reality, and you don't do magic in that bound condition. The prerequisite to doing magic is to free yourself so that you're a proper conduit of the universal flow of things. That's the Solomonic key. Solomon, in the myth, the first thing he did when he became king is didn't hire contractors, didn't hire an army, he just went straight to the singularity. He went straight to God and said, look, my meat brain doesn't have enough to do the job that I need to do. I need to do the universal job. I need to be an unobstructed conduit of divine energy. I want your wisdom. Number 2 on the tree of life. I need the understanding of my people. Number 3 on the tree of life. I need to cross the abyss thinking. In this book, chapter 4, chapter 3 is the biblical story of Solomon. Okay, it's very interesting and it sets up the metaphor. But chapter 4 is called Solomon the Magician. And it even has that little Aladdin's lamp there. And this is what it says. Starts off with an epigram from the tale The Fisherman and the Genie. Thereupon quoth the genie, know that I am one among the heretical Jinn, Jann, and I sin against Solomon, Whereupon the prophet sent his minister to seize me, and his wazir brought me against my will and led me in bonds to him, and he placed me standing before him like a supplicant. It's the Jinn talking. When Solomon saw me, he took refuge with Allah and bade me embrace the true faith and obey his behests. But I refused. So sending for his cucurbite, he set me up therein and stopped it over with lead. Whereupon he impressed the Most High name and gave his order to the Jinn, who carried me off and cast me into the midst of the ocean. There I abode 100 years, during which I said in my heart, who shall release me? Him I will enrich forever and ever. King Solomon is arguably one of the most colorful figures in the Old Testament. But the biblical Solomon is downright dull when compared to Solomon the magician of other traditions. Judaism and Islam seem to meld into a magical mist of fable and fantasy in the person of Solomon. He is at once a Hebrew king, a prophet of Allah, and an audacious Oriental wizard. Solomon the magician could talk with animals, fly through the air on a magic carpet, and cause others to fly through the air to him. He could control the powers of nature, and he was the master of the denizens of the spirit world, the demons, the afrits, the genii of Scheherazad's 1001 Arabian Nights. A recurring theme in these tales is the assertion that Solomon enlisted the services of genii and other maleficent spirits to construct the temple of God. The ancients apparently didn't see any conflict or of interest in this arrangement at all. To them, devils, genii, and demons were the spirit representatives of the blind forces of nature that create and destroy everything in the universe. Solomon was God's instrument on earth, and if he could control the infernal spirits to help him build the temple of God, then all power to him. Much like the thundering, smoke-belching heavy equipment used by today's construction workers, these potentially dangerous forces can be instruments of death and destruction when not controlled and directed by a higher intelligence. But in the masterful hands of a skilled operator, the same fearful tools can be used for righteous and constructive purposes, including the erection of the house of God. Recall how in 1 Kings we are told that in order to build the temple, Solomon employed 70,000 men to bear burdens and 80,000 hewers of stones in the mountains and 3,000 overseers of the work. The legendary vision is a little more interesting. Here's how Muslim religious historian Sheikh al-Suyuti tells the tale. Quote, when God revealed unto Solomon that he should build him a temple, Solomon assembled all the wisest men, genii and afrits of the earth, and the mightiest of devils, and appointed one division of them to build, another to cut blocks and columns from the marble mines, and others to dive into the ocean depths and fetch therefrom pearls and coral. Now some of these pearls were like ostrich's eggs or hen's eggs. So he began to build the temple. the devil's cut quarries of jacinth and emerald. Also the devil's made high polished cement blocks, or cemented blocks of marble, unquote. The Jewish Talmud relates a remarkable story of Solomon's dealing with the archdemon Asmodai in an attempt to procure a magical worm called the shamir. The shamir had the power to silently cut through solid stone with astonishing speed and precision. Although Solomon's control of the elements and his possession of the silent stone-cutting shamir are not mentioned directly in the teachings of Masonry, we still hear echoes of the story in the Master's lecture of the third degree. Quote, although more than 7 years were occupied in the temple's building, yet during the whole term it did not rain in the daytime, but in the night season only. And the workmen might not be obstructed in their labors. We also learn that there was not heard the sound of axe, hammer, or any tool of iron in the house while it was building, unquote. The concept of a magical partnership between a masterful servant of God and otherwise destructive and evil spirits will shortly become a very important factor in our understanding of Solomon's key. But before we discuss that subject further, we need to take a brief detour through space and time. The place is the lodge room of Lebanon Lodge number 58, Free and Entered Accepted Masons in Columbus, Nebraska, and the year was 1962. And then I tell a little story about myself. Anyway, that's it for today. I have to get myself worthy to appear in Berkeley tonight before the good folks at the Swedenborgian Order, or whatever the organization is called. I spoke before them in London a number of years ago, and I'm looking forward to getting out of the house and lecturing on the Kabbalah of the Blue Lodge of Masonry. I'll see you tomorrow. For today, that's it for Saturday Morning Cartoons. Continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.